Hi everyone, so in this video we'll talk about how to invest in stocks for beginners. We'll talk about everything that you need to know before investing in the market. Ano nga ba yung stocks? Why do companies sell their stocks? Ano yung initial public offering? Some strategies in engaging the market and how to select your first stock. Now, what exactly are stocks? So stocks are security representing partial ownership of a publicly traded companies. Okay? So basically, if you're buying a stock or if you're a stockholder of that company, you own a portion of that company. Depende kung ganong karami yung shares or stocks na hinahawakan mo, yun yung representation ng ownership mo ng company na yun. So stocks are issued by companies to raise money to grow their business via equity financing. So ano ba yung equity financing? So for companies to grow, they need more funding. Typically, this can either be done in the capital markets via debt financing or equity financing. So ano ba yung debt financing? So debt financing is basically a method of the company to procure funding or source funding via the debt market. So they would borrow money from the creditors via loans or issuance of debt securities like bonds. Okay? So from there, kung yung mga creditor pinautang sila ng pera, that is how they would get the additional funding. On the other hand, yung equity financing naman is where the company would list their private company to go public and then i-encourage nila yung mga investors to invest in their company. And yung proceeds ng pagbili ng mga investors ng shares nila, that is how they get their additional resources. But the question is, why would company list their stocks or shares in the market? So number one reason is raising capital, gaya nga ng sabi natin kanina. In order for them to get more capital or get more resources, they can list their company in the stock market, and then from there, they would use that money to either grow their business, expand their operation, change their capital structure, or basically pay off their debt. Okay? So yun yung mga reasons on why they would consider raising capital in the equity or the stock market. Second is valuation. So yung valuation is basically allowing the company to determine yung market value ng business nila, okay, or ng company nila. One of the function of the financial market is to be able to determine yung price discovery na tinatawag natin. So when the company is publicly traded, it's easier to determine the market value of that company because it's actively being traded by the buyers and the sellers. And the third is credibility and branding. As you know, if a private company goes public, so mas tumataas yung branding nila, yung credibility nila because hindi kasi lahat pwedeng magpa-enlist sa stock market. So yung branding, basically with all the scrutiny of the regulators, pinayagan silang mag-enlist. That way, they are assured na okay, this company is legitimate, this company, could have a future in their business. That's why the regulators allow them to list their company in the stock exchange. Now, paano ba nangyayari yung pagbebenta ng company ng shares nila sa public? This is what we call the initial public offering. The initial public offering is basically private company going public. Alright? So, ang nangyayari is that private company would seek for the help of an underwriter, typically a bank. And that underwriter will help them prepare all the regulatory requirements set by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Philippine Stock Exchange. And then from there, i-scrutinize talaga nila if this company is a legitimate company. Meron ba silang set of requirements to be able for them to be publicly traded. Now, once the company is already approved to be listed in the stock market, they can either issue common shares or preferred shares. So those are the two main types of stocks, okay? So common share is basically a type of stock that has a voting right. I think majority of the companies listed in the stock market would issue common shares. Bihira lang yung may preferred shares in the stock market. Preferred stock, on the other hand, pays its holders guaranteed dividends in addition to a chance for a price appreciation like what you get in the common stock. Yung dividend payouts nila is slightly higher as compared to what is being shared to common stockholder. One of the differences as well is they don't have voting rights, but they have a preferential or higher claim on asset when it comes to liquidation in the event of liquidation. Now, how do you earn or make money in the stock market? So the first one is what we call capital appreciation. Capital appreciation means the increase in the market value of assets compared to their purchase value within the stipulated period. So basically, if you buy a share, say for example at 10 peso per share, and then eventually yung price niya tumaas to 15 peso per share, basically kumita ka ng 5 peso per share doon sa initial investment mo, and that is how capital appreciation works. Okay? But the question is, why do prices fluctuate? So yung price movement is determined by na high level supply and demand, but yung supply and demand na yun, may mga underlying reasons yon, either market sentiment, fundamental factors, or technical factors. So yung market sentiment talks about the state of the economy. So ano ba yung current state ng economy when it comes to economic activity? Meron ba tayong investors going in the Philippines? Yung businesses ba or yung mga iba't ibang industry ba are performing well based on their operation, based on their net income reporting? And that basically influences yung mga investors to come in here, and if they're optimistic, basically they're more willing to buy the prices at a higher level. On the other hand, if hindi maganda yung state ng economy, yung mga investors would probably be on the side because they're awaiting yung sa tinatawag natin na recovery, and then from there, doon palang gagalaw ulit yung price to go higher. Okay? Second is yung fundamental factors. So when we talk about fundamental factors, yung company ba na binili mo is maganda yung nagiging performance nila, meron ba silang mga bagong brands or bagong deals or bagong expansion na nangyayari, maganda ba yung net income reporting nila, fundamentally sound ba yung company, and maganda ba yung nagiging operations nila overall. So that basically drives or influences the price movement. If maganda yung nagiging sentiment doon sa company, then potentially mas maraming investors na bibili ng company na yun. Therefore, the expectation is that possibly yung prices would go up. On the other hand, kung pangit naman yung sentiment dun sa company, may mga negative reports, hindi maganda yung net income for 2 or 3 consecutive years, possibly mas maraming magbebenta ng stock na yon, and could potentially drive the prices to go down. Okay? And the third one is technical indicators. So later on, we'll discuss more about yung ano ba yung difference ng fundamental factors and technical factors. But essentially, technical factors talks about yung price movement using yung charts, yung historical movement, the volume, the price analysis. Then from there, you'll be guided ano ba yung nangyayari sa chart. Are we in the support level or are we on the resistance level? That way, nagkakaroon ng influence dun sa stock price movement. Okay? The second way to earn money in the stock market is through the dividends. So ano ba yung dividend? A dividend is a share of profit and retained earnings that a company pays out to its shareholders. So when a company generates a profit and accumulates retained earnings, those earnings can either be reinvested in the business or paid out to shareholders as a dividend. Okay? So basically, ito yung profit sharing. Since ikaw as a stockholder, nag-invest ka dun sa company and in-entrust mo yung pera mo sa kanila for them to utilize for expansion, for creating more products, buying more asset, creating more operations for the business, ito somehow yung return ng investment mo. There are two types of dividends. Number one is cash dividend, and second is yung stock dividend. So ano ba yung cash dividend and stock dividends? Cash dividend, this is the payment of actual cash. So depending on the number of shares that you hold and depending on the announcement of how much is the cash dividends, so doon nagva-vary yung marireceive mo na cash dividends. Alright? Stock dividends, on the other hand, is basically a dividend payment to shareholders that is made in shares instead of cash. So instead, nabibigyan ka nila ng cash, dadagdagan nila yung shareholdings mo. So ultimately, yung stock dividends na marireceive mo is depending on dun sa stock dividend rate na i-issue nila, and proportionally mag-a-adjust dapat yung price nun depending on dun sa stock dividends na in-issue nila. Now, why would a company issue stock dividends and not cash dividends? So gaya ng sabi natin kanina, dividend is basically a profit sharing to their shareholders. Sometimes companies would issue stock dividends instead of cash dividends para yung earnings nila, ma-reinvest nila sa business. The expectation is that if they use the profit to reinvest in the business, either to buy more asset or to retire debts, eventually, mas magiging maganda yung financial position ng company. If they buy more asset, it could produce more profit for the business. Eventually, since nabigyan kanila ng stock dividends now, you have more stocks or shares to sell in the future kapag maganda yung naging performance ng company. Expectation is that eventually capital appreciation would follow, mas marami kang stock dividends to sell, mas malaki yung kikitain mo as a shareholder. And now let's talk about the different investing strategy when engaging the stock market. So you can either be active or passive investor. Okay? So ano ba yung active investing and passive investing? Active investing means investing in instrument and selecting investment based on independent assessment. So ikaw personally, meron kang hands-on approach dun sa selection process. You have to use your own expertise in analyzing individual stocks, and then from there, nagkakaroon ka ng active participation in the market. As compared to passive investing, basically, passive managers simply seek to own all the stocks in a given market index, typically either investing in a mutual fund, UITF, exchange-traded fund, or an index investing. Sometimes dollar cost averaging could also be considered passive investing. Mas less yung required na analysis and expertise in this case because somehow, for example, mutual fund, UITF, meron kang fund manager to actually do the selection for you. And if you're buying an exchange-traded fund naman, it basically mimics or captures the movement of whatever underlying yung minomonitor niya. So, easier for you to navigate in the market. Now, should you decide to do active investing, kailangan meron kang own analysis and meron kang own experience on how to select the individual stocks. So the question is how to select your first stock. So there are two main school of thought. Number one is fundamental analysis and second is technical analysis. So fundamental analysis would try to determine a company's value by looking at its income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement. So when we talk about fundamental analysis is basically looking at the overall state of the economy, the industry, and the company specific. So from there, you would have to assess ano ba yung current trends, ano ba yung nangyayari sa market, ano ba nangyayari sa industry before going to the company. So you're guided kung ano yung influencing variables that could determine the intrinsic value of that company. It helps if you can look at the financial performance of the company by looking at the financial statements. Titignan mo kung ano yung profitability nila, yung liquidity nila, ano yung future state ng business, ano yung mga products na i-endorse nila in the future, paano sila mag-operate in the future, meron ba silang expected expansion, paano sila mag-procure ng funding, and that basically determines your overall assessment in the fundamental analysis part. On technical analysis, on the other hand, is focused on price and volume analysis. Okay? So with the guide of the charts, you would see yung price movement, yung trends, yung volume analysis. You would, with the help of indicators and oscillators, mas nagkakaroon ka ng understanding, is it a good time to buy or is it time to sell? Understanding the support level, the resistance level, and with the help of the trend analysis, mas nagiging guided yung decision-making process mo. Now, by combining macroeconomic analysis, fundamental analysis, and technical analysis, mas confident ka to engage the market because you're able to understand if the company is going to do well in the future with the fundamental analysis. With the guidance of technical analysis naman, is it a good time to buy now? Are we now in the support level or now on the resistance level? Mas alam mo on how to engage and participate in the market. And now you understand how the stock market works, you're now ready to open a brokerage account. So for brokerage account, maraming options. You have traditional broker, online broker. Ngayon, sobrang dami na. You just have to prepare the list of requirements na kailangan nila depending on the stockbroker na napili mo. Typically, there will be a requirement for a bank account, a valid ID, and then from there, some would conduct an interview, and then you could fund your brokerage account and you can start investing and trading in the stock market. And that's it for this video. I hope nakatulong to dun sa mga beginners na gusto mag-invest in the stock market. If nagustuhan nyo tong video na to, make sure to like and subscribe. We'll make more of this kind of videos in the future to know how to invest on different types of investment vehicles, personal finance, and investing as a whole. Alright? Thank you for watching and I'll see you guys again. Bye-bye!